And we'd like at this time to invite Dr. Luby to join us on stage. Dr. Saren Luby will moderate this session along with Jerome Alexander. Let me, as Dr. Luby makes her way on stage, again remind you that Dr. Saren Luby, who was one of our panelists yesterday, is a licensed clinical psychologist dedicated to guiding children and adults to recovery and helping them to lead healthier, more fulfilling lives. Her doctoral training in clinical community psychology was obtained from the University of South Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, I now reintroduce you to Dr. Saren Luby, who is here this weekend representing the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Wasn't lunch delicious? Yes. So in this breakout session, for the next hour or so, we have the honor of speaking with Jerome, who is going to share with us and be very brave in sharing with us his recovery from porn addiction. And not only will he be here talking to us about his personal journey, but we will also hear a video from an individual, Ronald. Ronald is not his real name, and his identity and voice have also been hidden in the video that you will see. But what is really remarkable and important for us is that we can learn so much from Jerome's and Ronald's testimony as to how individuals can recover from porn addiction. And in their sharing their experiences, I think can give us hope as to how we can help others. So let me just give us a little bit of context. Join me in warmly welcoming Jerome to the mic, and I just want to applaud his courage.
Is this on? Okay. You guys can hear me? Thank you guys. Thank you, Sharon, for that introduction. Before I begin, I want to say, a huge thank you to the Family Life Commission for hosting an event like this. I think it is very needed in our society today. Yeah? And to Bishop Ilanos, who really took the initiative to pull all of this together, and Shamion Leaving and her team, who is working behind the scenes to get everything done and on time. Thank you guys so much for the hard work that you're doing. And this esteemed table of distinguished guests that we have, I've learned so much just by sitting in their presence. The hard work that it did to provide us with the information that we've had today. Thank you guys so much. We definitely appreciate it. And I have been, do you guys have my presentation? Is that right? Great. So I have been asked to speak on recovery and healing perspective from those who have struggled. And before I begin into that, I just want to give you a background as to, you go to the next slide, a little background as to who I am. And as rightly mentioned, my name is Jerome Alexander. It is just fortuitously that the second person who you guys are going to see, his name is Ronald, and my middle name is Ronald. But we have no affiliations. I just want to make that clear, right? And so I grew up, born and raised here in Trinidad, raised in Port of Spain, St. James to be exact. And I grew up in St. James, come from a nuclear family. I have my mom and dad, and there were four of us. I have an older brother, an older sister, there's myself and a younger brother. And my mom really was the one who really instilled in us faith and belief. And that had a profound impact on me. And I love church. I love going to church. Our home parish was St. Mary's Parish in St. James. I love church. I was involved in several different ministries, youth group, social justice, hospitality, quite a few. I was in almost everything, so a lot of people knew me by seeing me. And I went to school at Maria Regina Grade School. From there, I graduated to go on to St. Anthony's College. And then I got interested into engineering. So I went to the University of Trinidad and Tobago, where I did my Bachelor's of Applied Science in Process Utilities in Electrical Engineering. And my first sort of work was in the oil and gas sector. Then I transferred from that and I went to the food production sector because oil isn't doing so well. So I am where I work currently right now at Coca-Cola. And so growing up, like I mentioned, my mom really instilled in me faith and belief. Not really by talking, but by her example. So I remember waking up 5:30 every morning to go to sleep, early Sunday morning mass. And I fell in love with church because of that. And my faith continually grew. And one of the things that I love, we can go to the next slide. In our home, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. At our home, we had a ritual. On Fridays, we look forward to Fridays because Friday we can actually watch TV a little late. And you don't have to do your homework because you have weekends, and tomorrow is Saturday, so you don't have anything of real obligations. So I enjoy those Fridays, look forward to it. You go to the next slide. And around 1997, that's 19 years ago, I was 12 years of age. And for those of you who may be trying to do math, I'm 31 now. All right? So the invention of cable television was always out, but it was introduced into our home. My dad got us the entertainment, and we had cable TV. So now we're really looking forward to Fridays where we could watch TV shows. We used to go through the TV guide to see what was showing. And on one Friday, I remember being up late. Everyone had gone to bed. And I was up, and I was just going through the cable television. And I came across my first, what you would call today, softcore porn video. And I remember it having a real impact on me because it was the first time I've seen anything like that. And here I am, this young boy, 12 years of age, being exposed to something that was really interesting. So I really was interested in this thing. And I continued to make sure from that Friday on that every Friday I would be up just to see that. And this continued for a while. And you guys could go to the other slide, right? Around that time, my older brother, was the first one amongst us to go to work. And he was paid fortnightly. So every 2 weeks he would stop by a VHS store. How many of you guys remember this? Yeah, this is prehistoric days. Some of the younger ones might never have seen this before, right? Alright, so we grew up on this. You have DVD. Matter of fact, you can stream now on Blu-ray. This is what we grew up on, right? So my brother would stop by the VHS store and get us some of the movies. But I would notice that there was always one or two films that he kept for himself. And I was intrigued by it, right? Because it's like, I'm a big boy, I could watch anything, right? So I went, I didn't go deliberately. I went into his room. I can't remember what I was looking for. And I stumbled upon one of the cassettes that he keeps for himself. And so I decided curiosity has a funny way of getting. So I decided that I'm going to look at this thing. So I waited until nobody was at home, and I put it in. And I kid you guys not, if by divine revelation I had known what I was going to see, I would have never pressed play. So I did it. And pressing play immersed me into a world of hardcore pornography. It was the first time that, unlike softcore, that, back then softcore, the most you would have seen was probably a pair of women's breasts. Other than that, it was more like love making or something like that. And then here you have this hardcore video, you're seeing every single thing. And 19 years later to today, I can still remember the exact images that I saw on that day. It was so powerful. This happened just about a year from me seeing softcore. So softcore happened at 12 years, at 13 years, around that time my brother started working. That's when I first saw this. And it continued. It was my little secret. So when I first saw it, then and there was the first time that I actually masturbated to pornography. And it continued. It continued being my little secret, something that I continued to do. And around that time, I was now into St. Anthony's College in Form 2. You know, they have a saying, birds of a feather flock together. A friend of mine, right, we happened to sit down by each other, and he was looking at the same thing. So what happened, we started to trade some of the stuff that he had with some of my stuff that I had. But then we hit a kind of brick wall, because my brother, at the age of 15, I was the age of 15, he decided to move on. He went on his own, and so I no longer had access to the VHS films. So I had to revert to what I first started seeing on cable television. And I noticed that what I was looking at on cable television no longer satisfied. I didn't know why. Now I'm noticing this like subconsciously, but not really taking note of it. So I had to find another way to get my fix. So you guys can go to the next slide. Around that time came the introduction of the internet. Now back then, internet was dial-up. So you know when you logged on, you had TST, you had this loud noise and stuff. So I was very creative, right? Very, very creative. So I decided, in order for me to, if I do this at night, they're going to hear because it's dial-in, right? So I would log on during the day and put the computer to sleep. So by the time I wake up, it's already on, right? I was real skillful in these things. What happened is that when you want something, you find any way to get it. You get very creative, right? So I would wait till they go to sleep, and I started, looking for porn on internet. And looking for porn on the internet, at the beginning it was just pictures. They really just had pictures. They would show you, like penetration and stuff like that. You'll just see that. And then they started to upload short videos, but you had to pay a credit card to see it. I didn't have that, so I was just exposed to just the videos. And as time went on, I'm now into university. As time went on, the videos became free and longer. And the categories that you were able to look at was more. So you had categories like gangbang, you had 18 and abuse, you had crying, you had all of these derogatory things. Some of them I don't even want to mention because some of you guys, you're better off not knowing. Alright, so you want to go to the next slide? Next slide. Right, so at the age of 17, I went to my first retreat. Now, I was involved in several different church groups, as I remember, but because porn started to become a habit of mine, I no longer found interest in those things. So I sort of like slide out of the group. Nobody was really asking, well, where's Jerome? You used to do this, you used to do that. I just slept through the system. And I went to a retreat, and on this retreat, I can't remember how the discussion started, but they talked, the director said, porn and masturbating is what you would consider a mortal sin. And a mortal sin is a sin whose object is a grave matter, and which also committed with full knowledge and deliberate consent. This is the catechism of the Catholic Church. And so basically what that means is if you know what you're doing is wrong, you know it separates the grace of God from working in you, and you commit it deliberately knowing that it's wrong, that's a mortal sin. And this played on me. It played on me because I still love God. I still wanted to do something for him, and I believed that he was calling me, that there was an anointing on my life. But by that age, porn had such a grip on me, it really didn't matter. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to ignore this. So I continued. It was very difficult to get away from looking at porn. And I noticed that girls didn't have effect on me. So throughout my teenage years, even into adulthood, I never had a girlfriend because porn became that for me. I could have seen all these beautiful girls. Subconsciously in my mind, I guess I believed they loved me. So, and I love them. So why put myself out there to risk rejection and go through all of these problems in a normal, healthy relationship, right? I created this comfort zone where I was at home so I could avoid all of that human interaction. So this continued into university, and like I said, I kept it a secret. So I did not allow anyone to know that this was happening. So I kept up my grades. I was still active school playing football. I was into track and field. I modeled as well, represented Trinidad internationally and locally. And even while I was doing this, while I had a social presence, no one knew what was going on behind closed doors. I kept it a secret. And for years, days, months, weeks, I will continue making sure that I get my fix of pornography. Internet became my sole provider for getting my fix of porn. And so at the age of 26, I had my first girlfriend, and I still had my belief of wanting to serve God. So I said, okay, here's what we're not going to be intimate until marriage, right? And I was cool with that because I never told her that I was getting my fix. So she was like on her own. I was just here like physically, and I really didn't mind. I just had like, by social standards, you want to have a girlfriend. So I did that. And that relationship ended, but it had nothing to do related to porn. But what I realized, I was always reflective. I always used to look at my actions and see the change that was happening gradually. And I noticed that in that relationship, there were occasions when we had temptations, when we were close and we were getting intimate. And it was like an out-of-body experience because here I am, and I'm not Jerome. At that time, I was physically a virgin, but in my mind, I was gone. So whenever the occasion of temptation came and we were getting intimate, my behavior was shocking to her. I could see the expression on her face. It's like, this is not what it's supposed to be, because if you have never been intimate with a girl and you're doing what you're doing, then, but she didn't have the courage to say that to me. I guess she didn't want it to. I don't know why, but I just pretend like, it's like whatever. But so that happened, and then when that happened and I realized the change in my behavior, I sat back and I took notice. So I was like, this is not me. Like, honestly, this is like living in someone else's body, and I could not explain it for the life. Keep in mind, I come from a family that is strongly Catholic, full faith and belief. My dad is a respectable man. My mom is a respectable man. And we carry this surname that is, I pride myself as Alexander the Great. So I didn't want to make my family look bad. So I started secretly looking for help. I went using the same medium, the internet, looking for people who were probably going through the same thing. But unfortunately, I didn't find any. The few testimonies I found were of people who had their face distorted, their voices changed, and I really couldn't identify with that. So I just left it as, there's no help out there, let me just continue doing this. But my soul was crying out. It was almost like spiritual suicide, even though I would commit the act. And now knowing that what I was doing was a mortal sin. You cannot, as a Catholic, receive Holy Communion in the state of mortal sin. So there were many times I would go to church, and because prior to going to church I would have looked at porn, I had to basically sit in the pews when it's time for communion and look at everybody go up. And in my mind, it was like everyone was going into heaven and I was sitting back here with this sin. And that introduced depression in my entire demeanor. My self-esteem went down. My self-image was non-existent. I realized as well that anytime I was alone, bored, angry because of some disagreement I may have with someone, anytime life sent a setback, I would go to porn. That was my escape. Anytime anything became too difficult in life to deal with, porn became my escape. So when that relationship ended, porn was my fix because I didn't know how to deal with rejection. I didn't know how to deal with the fact that I'm no longer in this relationship. And I put myself out there because I really did want it to work, but it didn't. And so that happened, and I realized that I really needed help because what really turned the need for help was when I noticed the way I reacted with her when I was in that relationship. It was not me. Honestly, I tell you guys, I could not explain it. It is honestly like an outer body experience because I'm doing it physically. I'm there consciously. But inside is like, this is not you. What are you doing? And I'm saying the same thing that I heard. I'm doing the same thing that I've seen. And I just couldn't stop myself. And so I continued looking for help. And you want to go to the next slide? I continued looking to help, and then I found this guy. His name is Tony Litzter. And Tony Litzter was a recovering porn addict who went through a series of professional help, and he bring together a program that can help individuals. And I went through his program, and in the second week of his program was the silver bullet for me. He said, no matter what I say to you, no matter what psychiatrist you go to, what medication you take, what retreat you go on, nothing will efficiently work for you unless you make the decision to change. You have to want change. And I paused the video and I took 2 weeks to answer that. 2 weeks before I can say, yes, I want to change. Because what had happened is that I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted to serve God and I wanted my fix of porn. And God was saying to me, you cannot have two. You either choose that side or you come with me. And there began the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Calculus and differentiation and stuff, that is child's play compared to having to go through the withdrawal symptoms. I had to change everything. I mean everything. I had to change from the type of food that I eat to the people I associated with. I went through my phone, and the friends that I have who were not willing to make the change, I deleted their number because I cannot associate with people who would bring me back into what I'm trying to get out of. And so I continued praying and asking God forgiveness. I took it a next step further. I started to fast, make sacrifices, really believe, because I knew that there was a higher calling on my life. And as I continued to go on, I felt different changes in my body that were good. I started to do meditation. I read up on my mind on what happens when you're addicted. I found out what were my triggers. So anytime I was alone, porn was automatically in my mind. So I had to eliminate the amount of time I was alone. So because I had made this decision and I knew I wanted to change, I got back involved in church. I got back into the different groups that needed help and needed assistance. And I decided to reach out to people. I came into contact with Fight the New Drug. That's Clay. Clay's organization. And I would read the posts that they would have. And there is a lady who named Shelley Lubin, who really opened up my eyes to the truth about pornography, about what happens behind the camera lens to these girls, and knowing that half of these porn that are filmed, most of them they have STDs, and you can clearly see that they have that and they're still filming, and that woke me up even more, and my heart went out to them because I'm like, I am supplying this. When I look at porn and I view it, remember they can track these things, they can tell who is looking at what. So whenever the youths, whenever you view porn, and let's say you view older women, somebody in the other half of the world is going to pimp or traffic an older woman to film them to supply your demand. And that's what really goes on. You can go to the next slide. What really is porn? It's a business. It's a $97 billion industry. Think about it. If you had a business that was doing $97 billion, would you quit? You probably would not could. You guys are quiet. You know you ain't stopping. $97 billion at the end of the month with no degrees, you have to be kidding. Right? So it's supply and demand. When you look at porn, you create a demand for whatever you're looking at. And somebody is going to find a way to supply it. So at the end of the day, what is fueling porn? We want porn to go away. We want it to stop. We've seen the devastation it's causing to our family, our friends, and our loved ones, to our country, and the world at large. But every time you continue to view it, this is what happened. So I took the onus upon myself to change. That I would be the one that would stop first. And before I even speak to anyone about my struggle, I need to make sure that it starts with me. Mahatma Gandhi said, you need to be the change in the world that you wanted to see, right? It starts with you. And so I started studying words. I started understanding, the power of your five senses, particularly your eye gate and your ear gate, the things that you see, the things that you hear. It goes into you. There's this word called, we live in the information age, right? Anything you want is by a click of a button. But when you take a look at the word information, it goes into you, and then it forms. And then you have shun, is action. So the information that you're looking at, the things that you see, it creates an emotion, and then you act off of that. So when you're exposed to the news, I do not look at the news. I don't even read the newspaper. If I read the newspaper, I start from the sports, and then I stop where classified starts. I don't look at the news. I'm not saying that I want to be sensitized to what is going on around me, but funny enough, bad news have a way of traveling, and it has come back. Like what happened to that prostitute who died? I had no idea, but I found out now. I don't need to get the direct news because I know what that is going to do into me, and that's one of the reasons that I needed to stop looking at certain things, hearing certain things, because it would trigger something that would take me back to a temptation. And so, we have a lot of experts here. Guys, the youths that are here today, you guys should be by my table. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give up my seat so you guys can come here and talk with these experts, because these are the people I need to do. You want a presence in Trinidad? No one is willing to come up and do what I am doing. No one. And that's okay. That's okay. I will be the first one to come out and say, I had that problem. And by doing this, I only hope to represent a hope. A hope. We want to, we want to fight the new drug Trinidad style. We want to help all of those who are in addiction. We want to help the parents. Our experts are saying that they're overburdened with what is going on. How are we going to help them? It starts with you. When we leave here today and we go home and you go back into your comfort zone, what decision are you going to make to change? It starts with us. Mrs. Slaughter talked about it. Are we going to continue to hold these nice events where everybody come here and look nice, and then we go back home and say, we need to change? What are we going to do? So I've started, guys. And I know that porn will outlive me. But it is my hope that what we have started here, what the Archdiocese is doing, and what many of you guys want to do, it would see the end of porn. We may be dead and gone, but what we have started would help the next generation. And so that when you meet your father at the end of the day, you can see this is what I've done. Thank you.
Is all courage. Jerome, we thank you for tackling so forcefully a decidedly fragile issue or subject with us. And you know what? You're not alone. Our most earnest supplications have been answered because we wanted to get more than one like Jerome, and we couldn't. So we decided to go for Ronald, anonymous Ronald on tape. But here's what. Somebody has answered the call. He's with us today, and he's suffered as excruciatingly or even more so than Jerome. He is now a graduate in engineering from the University of the West Indies and is extremely aware of